Hello, and welcome to this forum tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to see what forum is, also how to start a session, how to join a session, and some additional pro tips like transcripts and custom terms. First, just to understand what forum is, it is a very advanced tool that allows you to communicate in different languages simultaneously. So let's say you're going to give a message in your own language. That message will go to the Waverly Cloud and simultaneously translate via audio and text to all your audience. You can translate up to 20 languages at the same time. So let's say you're giving a presentation in English, your audience can listen to it in French, Italian, Mexican, Spanish, and Portuguese from Portugal. We don't only have languages, we also have dialects, which increases the accuracy of the translation quite a bit. Also, whenever they have a question or they want to reply, they can do that in their own language. And you will hear it in English, he will hear it in Mexican Spanish, he will hear it in Portuguese, she'll hear it in Italian. So it is a bidirectional communication system. Now, to start a session is very easy. I'm going to show you how to do that using the Forum web app version. But remember, we have it available for iOS, Android, web apps, and Chromebooks. The interface is pretty much identical. So this is a very good example. So the first thing that you want to do, they're just two big buttons. You want to click host a session, and it will ask you to sign in if you haven't already. You can use Google and Apple. In my case, I'm going to use Google and just add a title. This is optional. One of the other features that you can have is you can mute the audience. So in case you don't want them to be able to reply, then maybe in a theater or in a church, you don't want your audience to have the ability to say something to everybody else. So you can mute it right here. Here you can also change your language and the tone of your voice, but also you can do this inside the conversation. Next, and that's it. And it generates a code where my audience can join. So 949675 is the code for this session, right? So I can share this code or the QR code with my audience, and they could be using their phone, tablets, Chromebooks, whatever they want. They just need to click the big yellow button that says join a session and either scan the code or type in the code, which is 949675. Once they do that, they'll get a menu where they can select their own language. I'm going to select French, male voice, and that's it. Now they're inside. So I could do this with an additional phone or with additional 200 phones, 1,000 phones. There is virtually no limit on how big your sessions can be. Once you're in the session, you can still change your language. I'm going to select, Spanish, French, Italian, English, whatever you want. And you can also type whatever you want to say. You have the ability to record with your voice or also type. Here in the corner, you'll see the number of participants that are connected. Here in settings, you can change to 3 different recording modes, which I'm going to explain later. You can also activate or deactivate the profanity filter. Very useful for schools, church, and museums. You can mute the audio, meaning that you won't listen to the translation in your own language, but you'll be able to read it. You can also mute the same language, meaning that if somebody is speaking in English and you're also receiving English, then it's not going to translate it, so you don't get bombarded by audio. And here you can control the speed of the voice. So by default, it's 140%, but you can even increase it more. This speed is pretty good because if you're like a native speaker, you can understand it perfectly and it's not super fast. So yeah, that's basically it. Let me do a test. I'm going to use my phone. I'm going to change it to Spanish. Hola, esta es una primera prueba para ver si está funcionando nuestro sistema de manera correcta.
Salve, questo è il mio primo test per vedere se il nostro sistema funziona correttamente.
Another capability of the system is that you can increase the font size. This is super useful in case you want to have captioning for a conference or an event. Let me increase this a bit. Something that is useful too is if you want to listen to the translation again.
您好，这是我第一次测试我们的系统是否正常工作。
You can double tap on the same bubble, right? And my Chinese is kind of horrible, but 你好.
Ciao. Hola.
That was a terrible example of my Chinese, but it could be used like that. So you could be using this system while you're moving. Let's say you're in a museum. Everybody has their own phone. They just need to scan the code, and they'll start receiving the translation in the language they have selected. And as you have seen, you can change the language right here directly. Let me now show you how to use the keyboard. I'm going to change the language because my Italian is not great. But, my Spanish is pretty decent. So this is a demo of how you can be using the system. And of course, these are very simple phrases, but you could use it in many different contexts like business, academics, church, museums, theater. There are a lot of applications that you could be using. And as you saw, you don't need to speak slowly. You can speak naturally, and the system will still capture everything that you're saying. Muchas gracias por ver esta rápida introducción. En el siguiente video les mostraré características avanzadas para que puedan sacarle el máximo provecho a Forum.
Thank you very much for watching this quick introduction. In the next video, I will show you advanced features so you can get the most out of Forum.